was an unbelievable amount of hype around Eric Lindros.
He was just absolutely fantastic.
He was a childhood prodigy. I remember growing up in Toronto and hearing a lot about Eric Lindros.
Gives to him. They set up. Lindros score! Eric Lindros has tied the game.
He would beat you in every single way, every single spot on the ice. He knew a way to beat you.
This kid's dynamite. Dean is a junkyard dog, can do stuff, but he's going to be a Messier and maybe tougher.
If he couldn't go around you, he was going to go through you.
Puck in the corner. Dackle. Mattered into the boards, and Dackle is down and out.
And the hype was 100% deserved.
He was a generational talent.
This was a guy that changed the game of hockey.
He started making headlines as modern hockey's next generational player.
He made noise, and he could back it up.
Over the years, one of our constants has been kids of all ages dreaming of one day winning the Stanley Cup.
Who will get the Stanley Cup handed to them by the captain first?
Wayne Gretzky once said he was told you were never really a true superstar until you win it.
Chance in front! Oh, what a save by the stick! Curtis Joseph got the pedal down on that one.
Right, another shot off the third front. Oh, Lindros! Score! To McKinley from they score!
Eric Lindros changed the game in many ways. Obviously on the ice, off the ice, injuries, awards. This was a guy that changed the game of hockey.
At the time, Lindros was considered the best product to come into the league since Mario Lemieux. He absolutely dominated any league he played in at the junior level. And so there really was this immense hype and pressure coming out of the OHL in 1991.
And I think the main reason when it came to the hype surrounding Lindros was just how many ways he could beat you. I mean, he got 71 goals, 78 assists in that year, was just a power play, even strength. Anywhere he was, he could beat you. He could be in the middle of the ice and still get it past your goalie. That's how good he really was.
He came onto the scene as a player that was never seen before. A guy that had this ultimate talent on the ice, that had that huge frame. 6'4", 230 pounds in his prime.
Lindros deserved the hype, and he certainly lived up to it.
When you go back and look at the film of Eric Lindros Jr. and watch how he played, you can see how he developed into a highly skilled, fast, strong, play-driving forward. And the action on the ice really seemed to just follow him around. He dictated his heavy, physical style of play onto the rest of the ice. And I think that was a defining characteristic of him coming out of junior, and obviously with his exceptional scoring stats.
He was a proven winner too. They won the Memorial Cup, the Oshawa Generals did in 1990, and then he was also named the CHL Player of the Year. So this guy had definitely backed it up on the ice as well.
Now for Lindros, there was drama before the main drama of the draft.
With some controversy surrounding his decision not to play for the Sioux Greyhounds like Gretzky had before him.
Lindros was traded to the Generals just with his first game in the Ontario Hockey League. Mark Bunting has a story.
He was drafted first overall in the OHL draft by the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, and allegedly he wasn't allowed to play there because his parents wanted him closer to home because of school.
Keep in mind, he was still a relatively young kid at this point, so there was really a good amount of pressure on him from a young age.
He was getting a lot of fallback from the issues of not playing with the Sioux Greyhounds.
They just went to really ridiculous lengths, I guess, to kind of assert that with the Greyhound.
And Eric, so much pressure on such a pair of young shoulders. How do you handle it all?
You got to realize where it's coming from and just understand that they're saying it because you're playing well, and you have to keep going out to the rink and playing, at the same tempo and the same level, and going back game after game and just playing harder.
And for a team like the Oshawa Generals, they got a star player, and he proved that on that stage. And then leading into the 1991 draft, he was regarded as the number one prospect, a guy that was going to get drafted the first overall pick.
There's no question about it. Eric Lindros is the top NHL prospect here today. There's little doubt that the Quebec Nordiques will pick him as their number one selection. Then it gets a little bit interesting.
If you think you've heard too much of this Eric Lindros Quebec situation, then fasten your seatbelts because it's going to be a very long summer.
Back in 91, Lindros was looked at as the best player potentially outside of the NHL, and of course that would end up being true. The Nordiques expected him to be the franchise face for them.
As it got to the draft, it was like a situation all over again, but in a different perspective. The Lindros representation and family didn't believe, and Lindros himself didn't believe, that the Quebec Nordiques and the ownership at the time could put up the money for Lindros in the future, and that they could build a team around him.
When Quebec selected him first overall in 1991.
The Quebec Nordiques are very proud to select as first pick overall from the Oshawa Generals of the OHL, Eric Lindros.
He did not put on the Nordique sweater and refused to sign with the team.
Lindros didn't want to play for that owner specifically. He stated recently he just didn't want to play for that owner. It wasn't because of Quebec, it wasn't because of that area or the fans, it was because that owner was greedy, whatever it might have been. He didn't want to play for that Quebec owner.
It was a bit of a red flag during the remainder of his career. A team who drafts you into the NHL and you go back to juniors instead of sucking it up and playing for Quebec.
Well, hockey experts are already calling Eric Lindros the next great one, but the 18-year-old's reputation is anything but great in Quebec. He says he won't play for the Quebec Nordiques, the NHL team that drafted him this summer. That's got a lot of Quebec hockey fans pretty angry.
I think he's a very immature boy.
He stuck to his guns. He said he would rather go back and play in the juniors than sign with Quebec, and that's exactly what he's done.
So he ended up sitting out a full what could have been his rookie season, and it was leading up to the 1992 draft where he finally got a resolution, and it was between the Flyers and the Rangers.
Lindros and the Quebec Nordiques will have a cliffhanger for an ending. As the NHL held its annual draft Saturday, the shadow of Lindros hung over Montreal. Both the Philadelphia Flyers and New York Rangers felt they had landed him. Now, in an unprecedented and almost unbelievable development, an independent arbitrator will decide who gets the rights to the NHL's next dominant player.
I find that Philadelphia made an enforceable deal with Quebec with respect to Lindros, subject to a condition which existed for its benefit.
The trade that sent Eric Lindros to Philadelphia was the biggest trade in Flyers franchise history. On June 30th, 1992, the Nordiques sent Eric Lindros to the Flyers for Peter Forsberg, Steve Duchesne, Mike Ritchie, Ron Hextall, Kerry Huffman, Chris Simon, 2 first-round picks, and $15 million. Remember that Lindros hadn't played a single NHL game at this point, so it was almost an unimaginably huge haul for one teenage prospect.
It was a huge trade. It was a huge trade to get the next one.
I thank everyone that supported me for the last while, and hopefully they'll keep supporting me. Again, the 15 months has been a long time, and hopefully I'll have 15 great seasons of hockey in Philadelphia.
He was titled as the next one because you had seen Gretzky enter the scene in the late 70s and all the 80s, and then you're seeing this kid that has so much of this skill along with the size. I'm talking about, again, 6'4". So you enter the system, you enter the scene, and you're this guy that it was all over the world. He was going on commercial.
I'm a centerman, not a center fielder.
Well, Modell's is more than hockey.
He was going on talk shows.
Please welcome Eric Lindros.
So then when he finally got traded to the Flyers, Philly was all over.
Professional hockey debut of the most heralded and highly paid teenager in sports history, Eric Lindros.
There was lots of excitement and expectation for Lindros when he arrived in Philadelphia. As a result, from the controversy that surrounded the trade and the immense talent and stardom that he brought to the Flyers, there really was great excitement and anticipation for Lindros when he began his career in Philadelphia.
Just under 5 minutes to go in the third period of our contest. Galley muscles it along to Fennick, and he shunts it back out. We hadn't had time to, well, here comes Lindros moving ahead. Lindros around and for Recchi. Mark Recchi has Brindamore to his right, gives to him. They set up, Lindros score! Eric Lindros has tied the game!
Now, heading into last night's season opener with Pittsburgh, all the attention may have been focused on young Eric Lindros.
That's all it was.
Headed away, center one off Lindros, a shot behind, rebound!
Lindros was in the elite category in terms of his pure offensive ability, but I think his physical presence on the ice and his strength and composure set him apart from most players of that era. He was such an immense force on the ice His shot, his speed, his outstanding ability to finish checks really defined this new role of power forward that he brought to the Philadelphia Flyers.
He had moments time and time again in his career, obviously more when he was healthy, where he would run some guy over, take the puck, and either set his teammate up or score.
It is Marchment with it. Swings it to Lindros, who's in on a breakaway. Moves in, look, shoots, score!
His elite goal-scoring ability combined with his sheer size and strength made him one of, if not the best power forwards the NHL has ever seen.
The Flyers weren't that good in the early 90s. They weren't that good until obviously the mid 90s, and then you see the John LeClair trade, and then it just like everything shifted.
Philadelphia traded Mark Recchi and a 95 third-round pick to Montreal for defenseman Eric Desjardins, along with forwards John LeClair and Gilbert Dion. This trade really brought about the pieces that the Flyers needed to solidify both their top six forwards core and add some depth as well. This trade established the Legion of Doom line.
Talking about LeClair, Lindros himself, and Renberg. These were three guys that were the most, together were the most feared line in the league.
Still no scores, the big line comes out. And quickly on the attack. Renberg to LeClair to Lindros, score! The big line does it again.
That would just be absolutely dominance. All three of those guys would be such physical, forechecking presences that dominated teams.
He's out there with LeClair and Renberg, the Legion of Doom on the prowl. Puck drops down to Lindros. Renberg and LeClair buzzing around. Here's LeClair, wraps it around. They score!
In 1995, the line carried the Flyers to their first playoff appearance since the 1988-89 season, where they beat the Buffalo Sabres in the first round, swept the Rangers in the second, and lost the Eastern Conference Finals 4-2 to the New Jersey Devils.
Lindros before that was still a brilliant player. Look back towards the 1995 season, after getting the Hart Trophy, being the MVP in the NHL, he was that good and that valuable for the Philadelphia Flyers.
And obviously the speech is iconic. Lindros being so emotional towards the end of that, 3-4 minute speech.
Thank you to the fans of Philadelphia who supported us when we weren't so good. We're getting better, and we're gonna do it. Thank you.
It was just so drawn out, but now it's just an iconic speech we look back at, because Lindros being emotional about his family and about the communication and about how much his family was there for him, and you can tell how much this guy wanted to win. As much as anyone can put Lindros down for the decisions he made over his career, and then obviously for the injuries he endured, the big point for Lindros was that he wanted to win. He never won, but he wanted to win, and not just for himself. Obviously a big part for himself, but he wanted to win for others too, and that was his big point. And when he was getting emotional at the end, he was apologizing to the fans for a team that wasn't good, that was getting better.
The following season, the line started to show some cracks. Renberg was limited to 51 games and 43 points due to injury, while Lindros posted 115 points, and Lindros had his first career 50-goal season in the NHL. The Flyers dominated Tampa Bay in the first round of the 1996 postseason, but then lost in the second round to the Panthers 4-2.
And you go to the 1997 team, which was the main team to beat, and they got 45 wins, 24 losses, and 13 overtime losses / ties. There was a lot of hope around that team.
The Flyers picked up their play significantly. They beat Pittsburgh, Buffalo, and the Rangers all in 5 games apiece on their way to the 1997 Stanley Cup Final.
Welcome to William Penn City of Brotherly Love, where tonight the quest to drink from Lord Stanley's Cup begins in earnest.
The big, strong, physical Flyers were completely shut down by 97 Detroit Red Wings team.
Chris Draper giving up 5 inches and 50 pounds to Eric Lindros.
Red Wings were stacked. They had guys like Yzerman, Fedorov, just to name a couple. And in game 1, the Wings destroyed them. 4-2 was the final score. And honestly, the Flyers couldn't find their rhythm back from the Eastern Conference Finals and the entire Eastern Conference run to get to the Cup Finals. But with that being said, Game 2 was not that much different. The Red Wings got off a hot start, but Rod Brind'Amour saved the day for the Orange and Black. He helped and tied it at 2, but it wasn't enough as the Wings won 4-2 again. It was looking like a bad series.
And the big thing was you lose 2 games 4-2, close contests, and you're going to Game 3 in Philly.
The Red Wings destroyed them physically, and with the super team that they had back then, it ended up being one of the most embarrassing performances ever in the Stanley Cup Final.
Gilligan tired. They'll pass it up front. Underman scores! Shot! Another turnover! Now he's in front. Scores! Low point gets a second shot. In front. Lindros scores!
Applauding the Red Wings, who are going to win this game 6-1.
That was a big Bob Clarke post-game, like everyone post-game, big chokers.
In this level of play, that is very difficult emotionally on your bench, and it gives the opposition an opportunity to just go out and execute their game plan.
They're not the goals you want to give up, but it's going to happen. You gotta deal with it. And
although Game 4 was pretty close, they didn't really have a chance against Detroit, and that was obvious.
Lindros saying he didn't play his best. Yes, he scored his only goal of the series in Game 4, but didn't really matter.
Red Wings will get it up. One-on-one with Carnies. Coming in there. Onyekwe. He beat him. Scores!
They lost 2-1, and they got swept in the Stanley Cup Final.
3 seconds left. Into the zone. The Detroit Red Wings on the Stanley Cup champions!
The loss in the 97 finals is one of the most defining moments of Flyers history in the late 20th century.
They beat us 4 straight. And I didn't think that could happen to our hockey club. I didn't think we'd be beaten 4 games in a 7-game series, let alone 4 straight.
Losing in that 97 Stanley Cup Final after dominating the Rangers in the Eastern Conference Final, I think that was a big, turning point. After that 95, it was just such a short span for that dominance for the Flyers.
Things started to seriously go downhill for Eric Lindros in the 1997-98 season. He suffered his first concussion on a hit from Pittsburgh's Darius Kasparaitis on March 7th, 1998, and in the span of the next 16 months, Lindros suffered 5 more concussions, as well as a near-fatal collapsed lung on April 1st, 1999. During the 1999-2000 season, he suffered a concussion in January and another in March on a hit by Boston's Hal Gill. Lindros played 4 games after the Gill hit, but was removed from the lineup when the after effects of the hit became too much.
And in 2000, that's where we're talking about the big hit in the Eastern Conference Final from Scott Stevens, open ice.
His own skate, turnover at center. Here's 88. Lindros makes the move, and Lindros is hammered down to the ice by Scott Stevens. And Lindros remains down on the ice as all the other players come together.
Lindros head down, shoulder right into his head, and that was like, boom, see you later, Lindros.
This devastating hit marked the end of Lindros' career as a Flyer, and Stevens' hit resulted in Lindros' 6th concussion as a Flyer, and was his 4th in 5 months. He sat out the entire following season with post-concussion syndrome and demanded a trade out of Philadelphia. After a long negotiation between the Flyers management and the Lindros camp, a resolution was reached, and Lindros was traded to the New York Rangers on August 20th, 2001.
Today, an association that began in 1991 came to an end as Lindros was officially dealt to the New York Rangers. Gord Miller has more.
It was such a messy situation.
Flyer GM Bob Clarke was sharply critical of his former captain and his parents over the last couple of years, and he wasn't holding back. Now the deal is finally done.
They stripped the captaincy from Lindros, gave it to Desjardins, and that was a huge turning point, and Bob Clarke was just done at that point.
Lindros
criticized their trainers, criticized their doctors, criticized their organization. He shouldn't be captain.
He ends up getting traded to the Rangers.
Well, this was easy.
He still put up numbers, but he wasn't the same. He wasn't the same of the combination of the physicality, the skill, everything that was entitled into the next one. It just wasn't there. The Rangers were still a good team. He still had opportunities, but it just wasn't a situation where Lindros was given his best capabilities.
After leaving Philadelphia, Lindros didn't make the postseason again until he got some spare playoff minutes in his final season in the league with the Dallas Stars in the 2006-07 season. Lindros officially announced his retirement from the NHL on November 8th, 2007 at the age of 34. No Flyers player wore number 88 before Lindros, and none will ever again, as his banner hangs in the rafters at the Wells Fargo Center. He is certainly a franchise legend in Flyers history, and since his fascinating and polarizing NHL career, Lindros has thankfully made his peace with the Flyers organization, which I largely accredit to both Bob Clarke and Paul Holmgren. Lindros was inducted into the Flyers Hall of Fame in 2014, the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2016, and his jersey number was retired by the Flyers organization in 2018. He also signed on as an official Flyers team ambassador on April 23rd of 2020. He never quite lived up to that hype in Philadelphia.
Lindros is basically the whole imagery, the whole picture of the rise and fall, because he had his huge rise. I would say even the beginning, he had a little bit of a fall, had his huge rise, and then had a very big fall.
Lindros played 486 games with the Flyers from 1992 to 2000, scoring 290 goals, 369 assists for 659 points with the club. He was the youngest Flyers captain in club history at just 21 years of age. And sadly, during his 13-year career, Lindros missed the equivalent of 2 more seasons because of injuries, most of which were concussion-related.
Such a skilled player, unfortunately, did not win the Stanley Cup, but due to circumstances and also being on the Philadelphia Flyers at points.
But he did win a Hart Trophy and led the Flyers to the Stanley Cup Final.
Lindros was a complete player, but sometimes it isn't a complete player that you need. It's a complete team. Dan Marino, one of the best quarterbacks to ever play in the National Football League, had the same issue, but he showed no matter how good you are, you'll never be able to carry a team to the title. And being able to build around one player is not as easy as it sounds.
Lindros probably still would have played a very similar style, and that style was great. That style was definitely what brought on the whole 90s of the Legion of Doom, the Flyers, the Bruins. It brought a lot of what you saw.
As I look at Lindros' career, his injuries, specifically the concussions, were a key factor in his career from 1997 on. This was definitely a major part of why he never won a Stanley Cup in the NHL. And despite not ever bringing the Stanley Cup to Philadelphia or any of the other cities he played for in his career, Lindros changed the way that hockey was played in the NHL. The league has certainly seen many different kinds of power forwards over the years, but no one has been that physical and that talented the way Lindros was.
We're talking about a guy that was given a lot of responsibility right off the bat and carried that responsibility and a lot of weight on his shoulders for most of his career.
Not many players in the league have the ability to take over games, but Eric Lindros was certainly one of those elite special players and is one of the greatest, if not the greatest player to never win a Stanley Cup.